What's up, everybody? Welcome to a special episode of Movies with Brando. I'm your host, Brando. This is a conversational podcast. Each and every week, I talk about movies, television, and everything in between. And as always, thank you so much for joining me. Now, I say special episode. No, and before I even get to any of that, I know what you're thinking. Why are you posting on a Monday? I barely have been able to stomach the fact I have to listen to you on Thursday. Now you're fucking dropping shit on Monday? This is ridiculous. I will not stand for this. I demand an explanation. Well, you're going to get one from me right now. As you are aware, longtime listeners of the show know that I endeavor constantly to try to find ways to improve the show. It's just me, one-man operation here for now. I got some things in the works to fix that, but in any case, one of the things I've been thinking about is the reviews. Now, the reviews are one of my favorite things to do with the show. I like being able to go into a movie, giving you my analysis of the things that I see, how I feel about it, and I like to think I've proven across all the episodes that I have some level of legitimacy for some of you. Maybe some of you just like to hear me be wrong. You're entitled to that, fine. I, of course, would just say that you get your own podcast and tell me to go fuck myself, but in any case, the reviews are a double-edged sword. Because with the podcast, the primary podcast, posting every Thursday, by then, you know, I've seen a movie over the weekend, and yes, I've had time to mull over my thoughts on it, my pros, my cons, my final score, but by then, like the momentum kind of for that particular movie has come and gone, and by Thursday, I mean, shit, that's like dog years. Basically, anything I have to say about a movie review will have already been old hat by then, is the way that I've been looking at it. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's the perspective that I have been getting. So I'm going to make a major change to the show. The first one being, starting this week, the reviews are no longer going to be part of the primary show. Don't worry. I'm still going to do the reviews. I see a movie every weekend. I try to build my weekend around making time to see something, whether it's Netflix or a brand new movie or whatever the case may be. There is always something that I'm talking about. Even if it's a shitty movie, and believe me, if you look over the course of this show, that's happened more than a handful of times. But I'm going to start doing the reviews on Monday. That way, I have something to say about it. I've had the weekend, and by Monday, really the final thoughts of anything is going to be up by then anyway. So, that's what I'm doing. Meaning Thursday, everything else on the show will be the same. The only difference will be, instead of saying, and here's my review of such and such, instead it's going to be, if you want to hear my review of such and such, go to YouTube, go to wherever the case, or SoundCloud, wherever you'll be able to find everything in the same place as always. It's just going to be separate now. Maybe that bothers you, maybe not. I'd be curious to see what your guys' feedback is. Maybe you don't give a shit. Fair enough. But I wanted to make sure, I try to be transparent. That's one of the things I pride myself on, other than my consistency with you guys, is my transparency. And I want to make sure that anything that changes at the show, I notify you guys, because some of you guys wait until Thursday night to episode drop, and Friday you're driving, and you like that extra half hour, 20 minutes that the review takes, as it perfectly fills out the rest of your commute, or whatever the case may be. That's the major bit of housekeeping I wanted to get to. So, the other thing is this. Love is in the air, as you know. For those of you lucky enough to be burdened isn't the right word. Encumbered currently in a relationship. You are aware that Valentine's Day is on Thursday. Now, because of that, obviously, since I value not sleeping on my couch, I have plans Thursday with Brooke, my girlfriend, who I speak of often, and most of you already have heard a lot about by now. So I can't do the show Thursday. I have a work meeting Tuesday. I have things Wednesday, and I'm basically out of town for the entire weekend. So Mondays are the only day that I have to do any of this stuff. So regarding the news, congratulations to Parasite. I never in a million years would have guessed that movie was going to win, Best Director and the rest of the shit that it won. It basically just fucking took a shotgun to all the other nominees and just made them eat lead. Good for that. I know I was very flippant about that movie. It was on one of the episodes I did, one of the, here's what's coming out this week. I had no intention of seeing it. I heard a lot about it as it gained steam closer to award season of being, a major contender to win a lot of the major awards. I just didn't expect it. But I'm happy for it. See, I like that kind of stuff. And I gotta say, I've been seeing some weird-ass opinions about this shit. There's this thick dude on YouTube who seems to not be upset about the fact that his shirt went out of style in 2006, but he still feels compelled to make sure we all know, well, it should have won Best Foreign Film, but not Best Film because it's not American film. Just assuming, that that's just an appropriate thing to say out loud. And the fucked up part is probably has more followers than I do. In any case, congratulations to all the nominees. Congratulations to all the winners. And I do want to do another shout out to Joaquin Phoenix, who won for Joker, like I did suspect. I don't remember. I really probably should start writing this shit down. Who I thought would win, blah, blah, blah. Who should win, who would win. Joaquin Phoenix was a shoo-in for that award. I'm surprised Joker didn't win more than it did. I thought it was... It seemed like a movie to me where the closer it got to awards season, the less and less people talked about it. And I'm not really sure why, but it was a great movie. It was my movie of 2019, if you are curious. But yeah, so that's... Weird episode today. I'm sorry that I'm so busy. Just unfortunately, there will always be a show. I think to date I've only missed one episode. That's not bad. That's not bad. So I do apologize about that. But I'm going to get into a review now. Just to recap, I know hitting you with a lot of information all at once. I apologize about that. Moving forward, today is going to be the last episode of the show on YouTube that's numbered with the actual number of the episode. Episode 58. If you're keeping score. I'm going to post it Monday. So today is Monday. I'm going to post it today. Starting next week, Monday, I'll have just a movie review for the movie that I saw over the weekend. Thursday will be the regular podcast episode. So, sorry for the confusion, if there is any. But moving forward, that's how it's going to be. And if there's any other major changes, I'll make sure to let y'all know. Now, enough of that fucking rambling. Holy shit. Were you as bored as I am? Probably. I watched Birds of Prey. Free from the emotional shackles of her beloved Mr. J, Harley Quinn embarks on a quest of self-discovery, making some new friends along the way. Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Huntress, Journey Smollett-Bell as Black Canary, Rosie Perez as Renee Montoya, Ella J. Basco as Cassandra Cain, Chris Messina as Victor Zsasz, and Ewan McGregor as Black Mask. Pros! Inspired costume design choices brought all the characters to life. Black Mask and his shirts that had pictures of him on them comes to mind, but all of the main characters in the movie had a particular style that accentuated their individual identities. Now look, you know that I'm not the one to be like, holy shit, look at those costumes. But I gotta say, man, especially Harley Quinn, extremely visually interesting costumes. Like, to the point where even I'm like, shit. I mean, this guy who loves all the MCU movies and most of the MCU movies and shit like that. And I see movies every week. So for me to specifically point out the costuming has got to put some klaxons off in your guys' heads going, oh wow, I guess it must be pretty good. There's this outfit that she wears. It's the one that's featured predominantly in the trailer. It's like police tape and like plastic and it's like big sleeves. It's hard to explain. This movie... Even just from the costumes alone, and I'm going to get to a little bit more of that later in the review, but just in the costuming, not one person that ever had any screen time looked the same as any of the other main characters, which was great. Just even from the way that their suits are fitted to the stylistic choices associated with that outfit. Like Black Canary, for example, she has these tight gold pants that I got very... Luke Cage-esque vibes from the way that she was rocking it with like the high heels and shit like that, versus Huntress, who has like a black chain that she wears over her shoulder, and then she has like kind of her stomach's showing in the outfit that she's wearing, but her outfit's very practical, very stealthy. Then you have Harley Quinn, who looks like she just walked over to the recycle bin and said, yeah, this will probably work, and then just left. And just all of them, I mean... It's not really fair. Renee Montoya, it's function versus fashion, but she's a cop. She's the least interesting. She's like the Black Widow of the group. Everybody else is running around doing cool shit, and she just has a gun, which is fine. But in comparison, it's a contrast. But I was very blown away, and I can't even believe I didn't even mention Black Mask, who has some of the funniest outfits that I've seen. He always has like this dope suit on, and if you pay attention, the shirts have little like monograms of him. It's hysterical. Just, it was so, it walked that fine line between being cartoonish and being believable, because as the movie progresses and you see the way this dude is, you totally buy that he would have an outfit that's just his face on it. Very funny. Other thing I really liked, the unique and flashy fight choreography. Every fight had a creative slant of some kind, leading to some funny and unexpected situations. An example that immediately came to mind was the cocaine in the evidence locker, but then there was also just a bunch of wild shit in the funhouse finale that buoys the third act of the movie. Great fights, man. They were very crunchy, they were very energetic, they were very just in your face. Like, these motherfuckers are getting their asses whooped. And the camera did a good job of showing you that. And I don't know if I'm not going to sit here and say that it's all the actors and actresses running in here and doing their own stunts. But the way that it's shot, it looked very believable. And I did have a gripe with the fight choreography, which I'll get into in the con section. But overall, every time a fight happened, I was engaged because it makes sense. I heard that I don't know if either the choreographers or there's some people involved in like the action set pieces for the John Wick, either the whole trilogy or just the third movie, were involved in the fight choreography for this. You definitely could feel John Wick vibes just in the sense of how fucking just beefy each one of those hits felt, just in your ears and just looking at it, you're like, fuck, that hurt. And that's the mark to me of a good fight scene, where everything's done, you're like, god damn. Looks like a fucking Mortal Kombat scene just happened in front of me. Woof. Other thing I really enjoyed, the overall energy of the film was contagious and fun. The movie oozed with style, and it was obvious everyone involved had fun making it. The chemistry between the leads shined through and made the whole affair very infectious. It was impossible not to root for Harley and the gang. Huntress in particular was especially funny given her limited screen time. Yeah, so it's hard to explain, but you go into a movie like this, and maybe it takes a little while to get ahead of steam, but once it hits you, you're really just in the moment enjoying it, like with everybody else. And it's one of the things about going to a movie that I've always really enjoyed, is that it's the shared experience aspect of it, because it heightens the emotions and it heightens the reactions to things. If a joke is funny, it's funnier because there's other people that you're laughing with. In a movie like Quiet Place, when the characters are encouraged to not make any noise, that tension is spread throughout the entire theater, so you're all on the edge of your seat and you're all just like bated breath watching right there with the actors and actresses trying to work your way through it, not get fucking eaten up by an alien. This movie was similar in the sense that it was just fucking fun. Like, to the set pieces, to the way that the characters would talk to each other. Just, there wasn't a wasted moment of dialogue, of scene transition, of exposition, of anything. And you were locked in from the moment things kicked off, because you're so involved in the excitement and just the fun and the vibe going on. You're like, fuck, this is pretty cool. It's like going to a house party. And it was, I found that to be particularly endearing. And I did give a special shout out to Hunter. She's in the movie maybe for half the second act and all of the third act. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, I'm a big fan of hers. A friend of mine has a huge crush on her, and it's easy to see why. She's fucking great. Every movie I've seen her in, she's been really enjoyable, really awesome, really brings it to that next level. And she does, this easily could have been a role that a lesser actress would not have been able to dig her teeth into. She does. And it's in these brief instances of dialogue where it's like she's this badass who just runs around taking scalps and getting revenge on the people that killed her family. But then you see that the transition to that, where she spends so much time training to be a badass, that she's very socially awkward, which is funny as fuck in the way that she interacts with the other, birds of prey in the group, and just seeing how she's so self-aware of that awkwardness and sensitive to people pointing it out. She played it so perfectly, and I very much enjoyed her take on a character that I really don't know that much about, but I'm curious how much of that was just from her looking at it and going, yeah, I'll do this way, or just something that she actually took from the comic book. Either way, I was very impressed. The other thing I really liked, the movie commits to the strange, off-kilter world it builds early on. You expect Harley to stick out like a sore thumb, but she fits right in with everyone else, which made her interaction with the world more believable. The R rating was a definite plus. Yeah, so this movie leans very hard into the fact that you're about to be involved in some crazy shit. And it really doesn't let go. And I wasn't expecting that, It's key in a movie with superheroes in it in particular, I believe, to lay out the ground rules. What can do this, who can't do that, what are the stakes, and what scenarios can we play with that still fit within the confines of the world that we're playing around in. And Harley Quinn it walks this line between being overly cartoony but just raunchy and self-aware and goofy enough that it finds this weird middle ground that you just you are sold by because of the way that it presents it to you, and you have really no qualms, save for one particular scene, which again I'll go into. I was taken aback by it, and I was just really just impressed by so many iterations now. We've been into the DCEU. You watch Man of Steel, and then you watch Batman vs. Superman, and then you watch a movie like Shazam or Aquaman. Each one paints its own corner of the world, and while you still see a thin kind of connective tissue between the fact that, yes, this is technically the same world, each film does such a good job of having its own sense of self that they're enjoyable in their own way. Even if some are more dour and serious than others, you're never looking at them saying, I don't know how this could fit with this necessarily. Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey comes the closest to having that problem, but I was just very impressed and enjoying the fact that, yeah, we have a world, but fuck it, we'll have fun with it. And I think you need that in a movie, and it's one thing to do that and have one toe in and then not really fully commit to it. When you dive in with both feet and still manage to carve out a way where somehow, whether it's a throwaway line to the Suicide Squad or a joke about Batman, both things that happen in this movie, finding a way to do that, navigating through that obvious minefield of narrative nonsense that Warner Brothers has left everybody that plays around in this world dealing with, it came out the other end better for it, and I was impressed. The other thing I really liked, the movie successfully expresses its message of female empowerment and self-discovery without sacrificing the rest of the plot. Yes, the men in the movie are all shitty, but not to the point of becoming caricatures. Black Mask and Zaz are legitimate Mr. Zaz, are legitimate threats and skin-crawling sinister, so you look forward to watching them get taken down. So, this was always my biggest gripe with Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters wasn't a bad movie because it had female empowerment as a core theme. Ghostbusters was a bad movie because it took that, beat you over the head with it so hard that you were incoherent by the time the credits rolled, and it made caricatures out of the men that it was trying to make fun of. You had their main assistant played by Chris Hemsworth, who's this vapid, dumb dude, and then you had this bad guy who was a bumbling idiot who happens to get lucky enough to get a hold of this miraculous power and cause all this trouble. There were never really any stakes, and there was never really any explanation or really real thought or nuance in the approach to this. And I'm not saying, well, you're a cisgendered man. No. Look, if I'm not proven over the course of 57, now 58, including this one, episodes, that I can have a fair and nuanced criticism, regardless of what the themes might be, because I don't happen to have a vagina, you're entitled to your opinion. But I'm going to call it how I see it. And a movie, I lived with my mother till I was, 15. She passed away. I moved in with, lived with my mother till I was 13. Then I lived with my dad. My mom died when I was 15. I have had a unique relationship with every woman I've dated, and I've mostly friends with females growing up in the theater community. So I like to think that I'm well versed in both sides of the argument. Being a man and spending a lot of time with very intelligent, very thought-provoking women who have different perspectives on this particular argument. I said straight up, the scene in Avengers Endgame where the most powerful character in the MCU, Captain Marvel, walks up and says, I need help or whatever, and then every woman to ever don a cape in MCU is like, we'll help you. It's like, shit like that is dumb, because it's not it's not nuance and it doesn't bring anything new to the table. It's just like, do we need another reminder of that kind of stuff? No, and that was Ghostbusters' problem. This movie, I was fucking rooting for Harley Quinn and the gang the entire time, and I was surprised at a movie about this character who has, she's very intelligent, she's a PhD, says it a few times, which is a cool kind of wrinkle to her character, but she goes off on these tangents. It's very Deadpool-esque in the way that she approaches the narrative and goes about interacting with people. Her thoughts fire, so many different directions all at once that you kind of have to cut through the bullshit to find the meat of what she's trying to say and do, and just like she does. For a movie based around a character who has so many things going on at once, for it to have probably the most nuanced approach to feminism and empowerment and independence, I thought it was fucking great. And the men are dicks, like I was saying before. The men are bad. Black Mask, it does a very good job of, he's not likable, but he's charming in the sense that he has an unpredictability that I thought was a great foil to Harley Quinn, because she also is that way. But where she is coming from a place of kindness, where, yeah, she's always looking out for number one, but deep down she's going to try to do the right thing to hurt the least amount of people, in her purview anyway. Black Mask takes that same perspective on things and just says, fuck it, I'm going to do what I want, kill whoever I need to achieve my goals. And I don't mind watching the world burn. And his relationship with Victor Zsasz is explored in that way also, where they have like a weird kind of symbiotic relationship going on too. Those guys are both shitty, but they were believably sinister. There's a scene where Black Mask, aka Roman Sion, is the bad guy. And Ewan McGregor does a really good job of showing these two. It's very, I don't want to say it's not Jekyll and Hyde per se. It's more like Mr. Hyde and like Diet Mr. Hyde, where like he's never strays too far from that veneer of I'm a really bad dude, but you can see why he would be such a successful businessman. A successful criminal, but you can also see why his family would disown him basically and cut him off from the family business, because he's a fucking psychopath. There's a scene in the middle of the movie where they're in this nightclub that Black Mask owns, and this woman is laughing at something. Black Mask assumes she's laughing at him, and so he demands that she take her clothes off on the table and body shames her basically and very horrifically embarrasses her. It was the first cringe moment that I had, but it's just like, it reinforced the fact that just in case there's anybody in the wings who's sitting there patting this dude on the back being like, he's a likable dude, that was the moment where you're like, oh, never mind, you're an asshole. And I appreciated the nuance. And the movie strongly benefited from not having caricatures as bad guys, but having fully fledged three-dimensional characters with flaws, with strengths, with weaknesses, with relatable traits that you could acknowledge, but immediately wash your hands up and go, oh no, this person sucks and deserves what they got coming to them. And they did. The last thing I really liked, the flashbacks successfully flesh out the other characters. We were given as much as we need, no more, no less. I can't imagine what the writing room must have been like. We're sitting in this movie and say, okay, we need to acknowledge the things that happen in Suicide Squad, but we also need to introduce 4 brand new characters into this series and somehow make them all blend into what Harley Quinn's primary focus and antagonist happens to be. While it is kind of contrived to an extent, you do forgive that because everyone's motivation for coming after Black Mask makes perfect sense. Harley Quinn and him have beef already. Black Canary is an employee of his who mistreats her and sees the kind of shit that he's into, and she's trying to help her out. Cassandra Cain steals from him, and she's trying to not get gutted and have the diamond that she ingested cut out of her body like she's fucking lunchable meat. Huntress, her whole family, as it turns out, was killed on the orders of Black Mask. And Renee Montoya has been chasing after Sionis for years, and now she has her big opportunity and is building a case against him. So you can see why the deck would be stacked in such a way where they have a reason to want to take a pound of flesh out of him. And having just a little bit of a flashback for each of the characters, except maybe Black Canary. Black Canary's probably the weakest of the flashbacks, but she also has she also comes from a different place than the rest of the characters do. She comes from a more wholesome place. She's just trying to do her thing and not really cause any trouble, and it just so happens she gets involved with all this other shit, so it made sense that she'd have left less layers to what her backstory is, but I think it came full circle because I thought she had one of the more layered characters on the front end, because you find out that her mom actually worked with the police, and that's why even though she has a good heart and wants to do the right thing, she's discouraged because her mom got killed, and as far as she can tell, the cops that she was working with didn't make any kind of an effort to find out who did it. So I just like the little nuggets that they leave for you, and you just come all the way through it thinking, well, yeah, I am not surprised these people are coming to work against Black Mass. That guy's a fucking dickhead. Here are the things I didn't like so much. The time jumps when Harley is narrating are distracting. It is clearly trying to take a page out of Deadpool's book, but does so in a less interesting way. It muddled the first act more than once and became a distraction. So yeah, it became noticeable. It really only happens in the first act and maybe a little bit of the second, but she'll start to explain something, stop everything, backtrack to another thing, and then bring it right back to where she was so that it fills in the gaps leading up to that moment. I just found it distracting. There's a scene where she's running through this alleyway and then she gets cornered by a bunch of different people that want her dead. She puts up a handkerchief and says, parlay, and then it cuts to forward to after that scene, and then it cuts back to that scene, and then I'm just like, I understood why they were doing it that way, but I just found it was either edited poorly or they should have just found a better way to come across with the fact that she is an unreliable narrator. They could have just handled it better. Just massage it a little bit better, because it was very annoying. I'm like, I just want to get to this other part. I don't want to keep going back and forth all the time. Other thing I didn't like, the slow motion during the fight scenes made the fight scenes kind of sag a little bit. Every single scene had at least 3 to 5 instances of slow motion. Enough. I thought Michael Bay was somewhere collecting a check for this movie. I'm like, guys, look, maybe call me old-fashioned. I personally, as I get older, I don't have a lot of patience for slow motion. Unless it's a really insane sequence, I don't need to see it slower. Just take the hit, move the fuck on. And I think we've been spoiled with movies like Bourne Identity or like the Bourne series and like the new James Bond movies, where it's just the impressiveness of the action isn't from the slow-mo, it's from the fucking kinetic energy coming out of the hits. Like, you just fucking you hit a dude 2 times in the rib cage and then pop him in the jaw and then he drops. It's like, fuck, the speed and efficiency in which you're dispatching the bad guys is what gives it some grittiness. I don't need to see a slow motion thing. It's very 80s, it's very throwback, and I don't think it adds anything to any fight scene I've seen it in the last 10 years. Other thing I didn't like, the whole scene in the police station, while cool, was completely ridiculous and broke the world it spent so much time building. Harley Quinn, a known criminal. Just let me lay out the scenario for you, okay? I sound like Detective Alonzo in Training Day. Here's the scenario. Harley Quinn, a known criminal, just walks into the police station, pulls out a beanbag gun, and then uses it to take out all the cops. She doesn't kill any of them. They make a very obvious point that we're not killing Harley Quinn. We're still committing assault and battery against uniformed police officers on duty, but she's not killing any of them. She's just beating the shit out of everybody in the GCPD. Walks in with the police station with a beanbag gun. Then, after she's walked through, these 3 bad guys with guns walk in right behind her, seemingly unabated, unbothered. None of the cops lay on the ground, said, hey, bad guys. What the fuck? They have this whole scene of the movie, and it's one of the cooler action scenes. She's at the police station to find Cassandra. She gets her. She gets in a fight with the guys in the jail cells by her, and then she walks out and gets in a fist fight with the thugs that are chasing after her. After that particular fight, all of it takes place in the confines of the cell block and the confines of the evidence locker. At no point, you don't have any cameras. So none of the cops can get up. They don't have an alert that goes out to the GCPD. Hey, 4 armed assailants just walked in and kicked the shit out of everybody. Can you come help? And it stretched for as much fun as I commented on the world being and just kind of the way that they're playing around with it. That particular sequence of events to me stretched that to its breaking point where I'm like, okay, guys, I get it. There's no way that she'd be able to get 5 steps into a police station without somebody going, fuck, it's Harley Quinn. Everybody seems to know who she is. Early in the movie, Renee Montoya finds like a piece of her necklace and goes, oh yeah, Harley Quinn drove this truck into a toxin plant because it's the same plant her and the Joker fell in love. She broke up with him. Oh yeah, and she's also in trouble for fucking burning down an entire building. But they don't have any posters up saying, oh, Harley Quinn, look out for the bad bitch. Come on, man. Come on. Other thing I didn't like, the CGI, the larger environments looked really bad. On top of this, it was an unnecessary flourish. The smaller, more contained story fit well within the confines of a city, and these larger landscapes were way out of place. Yeah, I just sat there and like, what the fuck? You don't need any of this other shit. You have everything you need. It's in a city. It takes place in Gotham City. I liked the fact that for once we're watching a superhero movie where it's not the fucking world you have to save. It's trying not to get killed by this scumbag gangster. Why am I looking at fucking dilapidated roller coasters and poorly rendered CGI in like 2 different scenes at the end of the movie? Did you need something to blow the rest of your budget on? Because maybe you could have used it to punch up the CGI on the hyena a little bit more, because that didn't look very good either. So it's just weird to me. The final thing I didn't like, there was a musical interlude during Harley's rough treatment by Black Mask that was strange and distracting. She never breaks out into song at any other moment. Random for the sake of being random added nothing to the situation. I don't like when a movie says, just because we can means we should. No, it doesn't always mean that. Most of the time, you should probably use some restraint. Irony being, this is a movie that doesn't seem to have a whole lot of it, and it's a strength of it more often than it's a deterrent, but it just was so out of place, and it's the scene that you think I'm referring to, where she looks like Marilyn Monroe and she has the red dress on, and she breaks out into like a dance number, while Black Mask is beating the shit out of her because he's mad that, you know, she keeps fucking around with him, and, you know, she's trying to parlay basically a way to not get gutted in this particular moment. While she's getting beat on, she just has this image of her dancing around Black Mask, and it just kind of flashes in and out of reality versus what she's seeing, and to get past the pain. It was just weird. If they had set up early that she has a tendency when she's under a lot of pressure to do something like that, that would have been one thing. It would have built on her character. But it's not. It was very much we need something to make it so that the audience knows that Harley Quinn is kind of in a weird place in this moment. What are we going to put in there? And it just sucked all the steam out of what otherwise should have been a mostly tense scene. So here are my final thoughts on the movie. Films about women empowerment are no stranger to the world of cinema, with the most profitable genre in the world, superheroes, finally becoming fertile ground to tell these stories. While Birds of Prey could have easily collapsed under the weight of the feminist flag it proudly wears on its sleeve, inspired costume design, boundless energy, and a full-throated commitment to the R-rated lunacy of the world gives this adventure a refreshingly bold take on well-worn tropes. If you can look beyond the unnecessary CGI near the end of the movie, laughably bad police work, and the uneven narrative device, you are in for one of the most enjoyable experiences to come out of the DCEU. 8 out of 10. This is one of those rare movies where the longer I thought about it, the more I actually liked it. Because I came out of the movie kind of sitting there like, 7, maybe a 6, but more a 7. And as I was talking to my friends about it over the course of the evening and just kind of thought on it more, I really enjoyed the movie for the fun that it was. And that really, to me, is the key here. Harley Quinn is obviously a fun character. This particular section of the DCEU that they've carved out, I very much enjoyed. And while I stand by what I said about the DCEU having this narrative-focused problem, it's just like I mentioned earlier in the review, regardless of the dissonance between the franchises, they are given the keys to their individual kingdoms, basically, and are basically, Warner Brothers has put their hands up and said, fuck it, let's have a rated R movie about Joker that's not related to anything else we have going on. Let's have a movie where Wonder Woman is running around in 1984. Let's have another movie where Harley Quinn is hanging out with the Birds of Prey. Why not? And I will say, while the MCU doesn't have any real competition from DC right now, I will say that this narrative quagmire, so to speak, that they found themselves in has given them an opportunity to play. And DC has accidentally stumbled upon a an opportunity that I hope they continue to take advantage of. And I'll beat this drum constantly. You don't have to force an R rating on these movies, but you know what? You are in a domain where unless they decide to have, other than Deadpool, and it's still kind of on the fence if Disney's even going to pursue that, really, with any kind of intent, you own the rated R superhero space currently. Utilize that. Double down on that. Maybe have Shazam. I thought Shazam would have been better with an R rating because kids fucking around with superpowers. I know I'd have been into some shit. You have a complete space now to play in that you are not going to be abated by anything that Disney is going to do. Use that as a strength. I very much enjoyed this movie, and I heard that it's not making a lot of money. It's almost made its whole budget back, which isn't too bad. It had the lowest opening of any DC movie. It's getting rave reviews, so I'm very surprised at this. They already have a name change plan. I guess they're calling it Harley Quinn Birds of Prey. Bad move. You should just stick to the ridiculous title. You've gone this long into the process. Keep it. It actually is stupid as the whole title is, and I'm not even going to say it. That's how stupid it is. It fits with the rest of the fucking movie, so leave it alone. Anyway, that's it for me this week. Like I said, Valentine's Day coming up. I don't have time to do the show. Starting next week, starting today. Today is the last day that video will be posted. A show will be posted on Monday that has the actual name of the episode. Starting next week, Mondays will be movie reviews only. Thursdays will be the full show. If you're listening, thank you. I appreciate it. You can find the show, the audio version, on SoundCloud. You can also find it on the podcast app on your iPhone. If you don't have an iPhone, I guess it's going to be SoundCloud for you. Just look up Movies of Brando. Find me on Twitter, Movies Brando. Find me on Instagram, @Movies of Brando. You can find me on Facebook, Movies of Brando. Are you seeing a theme here? I'm trying to market, have a brand. Movies of Brando is basically everywhere. It's the name of my account on my Netflix. So, what are you going to do? Your social currency matters to me. Thank you for listening to the show. Tell your friends, tell your family. They want to know who is this fucking guy with the forehead on your fucking YouTube page where you're trying to get over there, have a nice dinner. I can't digest my food. I gotta look at this fucking guy. You tell him where to find me. But I really appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoy listening to the show as much as I enjoy doing it. You will hear from me again on Monday. Speaking of which, I'm going to have to think of what to call the review portion of the show. The episodes, this will be episode 58. This counts as a full episode of the show, but I'm posting it a day earlier than normal versus moving forward. It'll just be the episode of the movie review Monday. The podcast will continue at its regular episode count, 59, next Thursday. Throwing a lot of information at you. I feel like I'm being more confusing than I need to be. I apologize. You'll figure it out. If you follow me on the shit, you'll see what's happening. Love y'all. Thank y'all. Good night, everybody.